Hey there, entrepreneurs. My name is Sushant, and welcome to TrepTalks. This is the show where I interview successful e-commerce entrepreneurs, business executives, and thought leaders, and ask them questions about their business stories, and also dive deep into some of the strategies and tactics that they have used to start and grow their businesses. And today, I'm really excited to welcome Tyler York to the show. Tyler is the founder and CEO of Achievable. Achievable is an online test preparation platform that offers modern, guided, and personalized courses for various high-stakes exams such as FINRA, SIE, and series exams, GRE, USMLE, and others. They emphasize delivering better results in less time and offer a pass guarantee for certain exams. And today I'm going to ask Tyler a few questions about his entrepreneur journey and some of the strategies and tactics that he has used to start and grow his business. Now, before we dive into this interview, if you enjoy this kind of content, please make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. And for more interviews like this, please visit treptalks.com. And with that, Tyler, welcome and thank you so much for joining me today at Trip Talks. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to be here.
So your business, Achievable, it's very interesting. It's a test preparation platform. Can you share a little
Mhm.
bit about your story? What were you doing before you started this? When did you start, and what kind of gave you the motivation and idea to start this test preparation business?
Yeah, so before Achievable, I guess sort of the origin story of both Achievable and then it also kind of covers our careers a little bit was me and my co-founder Justin Pincar were roommates at college at Carnegie Mellon University. So he was studying human computer interaction, computer science double major, which is pretty tough to do. And I was not smart, I was in marketing. And so basically, we actually started a couple of companies in college. They didn't really work out, but we always kept in touch and always knew what we wanted to start something together. But then we went off to have kind of our separate careers. I did a number of early stage startups, mostly in the video game industry, before ending up at a job at Glue Mobile, which then was acquired by Electronic Arts. And so that was kind of my career path. I ended my career running the marketing for a mobile game called Tap Sports Baseball that I grew from, well, me and the team, not just me by myself, grew from 74 to $104 million dollars in annual revenue in just 3 years. So it's a very successful game and, managed basically all of the marketing operations for that game. Additionally, Justin, he, after graduating college, went to work at AdMob, which was then acquired by Google. While at AdMob, he helped run their mediation layer and scaled it up to over a billion impressions a day. And it's a big part of the reason of why AdMob got acquired. And then from there, after working at Google for a little while, he decided he really wanted to have more impact in his day-to-day work, and so also wanted to work on education. So he became one of the founding engineers and architects of multiple ed tech startups. Before in 2015, he came to talk to me about working on a new idea that he had. So Justin, in addition to kind of all his other things that he does, was also learning Japanese. And while learning Japanese, he came across a learning method called space repetition, which is a learning method based in the science of how memory works in the brain. And it was actually originally discovered in the 1800s by a psychologist named Ebbinghaus. And essentially, you can train your brain to memorize things. It's not so much like, oh, some people are better at remembering things than others. Like you can actually do this deliberately. And so hardcore language learners, like people learning Japanese, use it as well as medical students and people that are trying to memorize 100,000 facts for Jeopardy.
Hmm.
And so the thought was basically that space repetition was this very powerful method. There are some free resources like Anki, which are great, but they're not a vertically integrated test prep product
Hmm.
where you can basically not even know that it's there and it's helping you learn and memorize all the material you need to know to pass these tests. And so that was the idea for Achievable, and we got together to start that business in 2016.
So achievable. I mean, it's very interesting. You're mentioning spaced repetition.
Mhm.
Um, do you think all these tests that you're preparing students for, that's kind of the basic ingredient to be successful in those tests, or like there's other things as well?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is that essentially almost every one of these high stakes tests, from anything from the SAT all the way up to, again, like the FINRA exams or the medical licensing exams, they all require that you have to remember something,
Hmm.
right? And some that can be a mix of what we call trivia, which is just like, what is the contribution limit of a Roth IRA? What is the maximum gift limit? What laws apply to like the security sale? Or it could be things that are application based, like how to do an option straddle. And in all instances, you have to remember how to do it, right? You either have to remember the right answer, you have to remember the method for solving the problem. And spaced repetition works equally well for both. And so that's sort of at the core of our learning experience. We obviously provide a holistic learning experience. You've got a great textbook, videos. We teach you everything just like you would in every other course. But the thing that we do differently that other people don't really do is we also have these space repetition backed quizzes that are being algorithmically fed into your queue depending on our estimate of your memory strength of the individual item. And that is something that sets us apart, I think, from the rest of the competition.
So you've kind of taken the Anki and integrated into your platform.
Essentially the same idea, obviously not the same platform because we do not work with Anki,
Okay.
but it's the same learning method, right? I mean, there's nothing about the learning method that's sort of copywritten or patentable. It's something that you could go look up on Wikipedia, and essentially, there's multiple ways to implement it, right? The most common one is what's called a Lightner system, and so you know, other people can do this too, but just it does take some technical know-how, and I think that's a big part of why we haven't seen it as much.
So on your website, I see a lot of courses, and there's a different instructors that have like different hourly rates and things like this. Can you talk a little bit about how exactly it works? So somebody enrolls into a course, and are they enrolling with a certain instructor, or they're assigned as instructor? How exactly does it work?
Yeah, the courses and then the tutor directory are two totally separate things. So every achievable course, there's only one course. Generally speaking, what we do is we seek out the best authors that we can find in each area. A lot of times, those are people that are tutors or people that were already published authors for that course in the past. And then we contract them to develop the course with us. Separately from that, the tutor directory is something that we provide as a free resource for all potential students. It's free for the tutors and free for the students. It's literally just anybody who wants to be listed there can be listed. And it's a great way to figure out what tutors are available without having to sign up for some other competitors that will send you a lot of spam emails and just otherwise, they are usually taking a cut, right? So they have different incentives. Our incentive is just to provide a good free resource for potential people that are potentially interested in the exam.
So what I'm understanding is you're just another school. You have different methodology of teaching, but you do have a lot of other competitors who teach or do preparation for these classes. What is your business model? Is it, when you create these courses, you license, I guess, would it be called licensing the courses because it's created by someone else? And then you pay them every time a course is purchased, and you keep a certain portion of it. Is that kind of the business model for it?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a license. I mean, we contract with authors to write the course material for us, and we
Okay.
have different payment arrangements for that. But essentially, like in term to answer sort of your original question, like functionally to the end user, we are going to be very similar to a Kaplan or a Princeton Review or something like that. The difference is, and sort of things that have helped us win and be successful in these markets, is we have a really big emphasis on both strong customer experience and high course quality. And those are things that really have helped us grow a lot through word of mouth and just generally like doing right by the customer. For instance, a good example of this is like we don't charge subscriptions. We charge a one-time fee and you get a whole year of access, which is more than enough to prepare for any of these tests for the most part. And the reason for that is because most of the people preparing for these tests are trying to get through it as quickly as they can. They don't want to spend 4 months preparing for the GRE. They want to spend two,
Hmm.
right? Or and so if you are selling a subscription product, your financial incentive is to take longer, right? Where the customer wants it to be shorter.
Hmm.
So we try to always like align our interests with the customer in the way that we conduct our business. I think that is part of the reason why people really enjoyed working with us.
Now, this reminded me of this language learning app, given that you mentioned your friend was learning Japanese and things like this.
Hmm.
Duolingo, right? And I
Hmm.
believe isn't Duolingo like based on a similar kind of a methodology? Like they keep on feeding you like repetition and practice and things like this. Is that kind of the general idea here as well?
Probably, I'm sure they would think so. Yeah.
Okay. So when you started out, when you were starting out this business, what kind of investment go into this? I mean, given that it's an online business, I mean, I'm assuming there's like the platform component of it just to get the platform started, and then there would be some marketing to acquire
Mhm.
customers and so forth. Can you talk a little bit about the early days and what kind of gave you the confidence that this will actually work?
Yeah. So when we first got started, we took a look at, probably about 50 to 60 different markets that we could potentially, that we felt like were going to be a good fit for the MVP of our platform. And the big thing about it was the test needed to be high stakes. Like it needed to be something that people were really invested in because the biggest problem with spaced repetition based language learning apps is that if you don't show up, then it doesn't work that well.
Hmm.
Like you've got to study in order to learn. I mean, it's
Hmm.
kind of obvious, but I mean, when you're starting a business, you don't want to be starting a business in an area where your biggest challenge is just apathy,
Hmm.
right? You want people to be committed. So we were looking for something where people were committed, where there was a financial outcome attached to it, preferably, and also where the existing competition was not very strong, especially not very strong technically, and had poor user experiences. Um, and then was something that we felt like we could get, market penetration in. And so through our research, we found the FINRA market, and at the time, which is 2016, it felt like a really good fit. FINRA, I'm not sure how familiar you are, but basically it's very high stakes. In order to sell securities, aka stocks, in the United States, you need to be licensed.
Hmm.
And if you fail your licensing test twice or three times, sometimes, you generally lose your job. So imagine you finally get your big break, you got a job at Morgan Stanley, and you're so excited, and then you can't pass this test that you didn't even know existed until you got there,
Hmm.
and now you're out of that job again, and you're back to hoping to get a job in Salesforce or something, right? Like
Hmm.
it's very high stakes, and so we felt like that was a really good fit. And then the competition at the time, barely had mobile apps. A lot
Hmm.
of the competitors were very, it's an old industry. It's like, it's like a regulated industry in a lot of ways, and so it's a little bit slower moving. And so that was where we decided to focus on, and we originally set out by, like creating the course and then doing a lot of just cold calling. The nuance with the FINRA exams is that you need to be employed in order to take them. You
Hmm.
can't just take the FINRA Series 7 off of the street.
Hmm.
You have to have a job at a FINRA registered firm. And so, therefore, it meant that the only way we could go to market was B2B
Hmm.
because we had to get into firms and then get those firms to trust us to help their reps get licensed.
Hmm.
And that was very, very challenging as a small startup selling, something that's pretty important and potentially affects people's careers to very large banks. That was a very challenging process to go through. Even so, we were still able to get three top wealth management firms as customers over our first 2 years. And we ran controlled pilots with a couple of them. We were able to show demonstrable efficacy of the strength of spaced repetition and how it helped people remember the material, and that became more pronounced as essentially their learning journey went on. So like the boost was, smaller in week 1, but by week 8 it was very large. Um, But unfortunately, it's just, again, we needed a large catalog of all these different FINRA tests, not just the Series 7, in order to really make headway with these larger firms and actually replace the products that other people already were using. So, given that, we actually, with a little bit of good fortune, um, happened to be in the market at the time that this new exam called the FINRA SIE was announced, which stands for the Securities Industries Essentials Exam.
Hmm.
And that the purpose of this exam was that for the first time, anybody could come off the street and take it. And the goal was so that, that whole exercise that I talked about earlier, where you're somebody that got a job at Morgan Stanley and you're really excited, but then you have these tests you've never heard of, and then
Hmm.
you're really bad at them, and then you can't pass them and you lose your job. FINRA was trying to solve that problem.
Hmm.
So they made the new SIE, which is basically taking sort of the first half of the Series 7 and establishing like a common core curriculum
Hmm.
that's meant to be like the entry level test. And going and taking that and making it so anybody could take it, which means that you can take this test before you get a job. So then first off, if you even have the ability to pass these tests, because they are
Hmm.
challenging. But second off, it also is a way to pre-qualify yourself for employment and put your resume ahead of the stack compared to everybody else's.
Hmm.
So we said, we've had so much trouble going B2B. I think we need to pivot the business to B2C
Hmm.
and focus all of our efforts on this new test.
Hmm.
So that was what we did going into early 2019. We launched it March 2019. And we also worked really hard on having really high quality content to go with it. And it basically has done extremely well. So since then, our success with that FINRA SIE exam has allowed us to build a catalog of, FINRA Series 6, 7, 63, 65, 66. We've got Series 9, we've got more on the way. And essentially now we are able to win the corporate deals that we weren't able to win 8 years ago
Hmm.
because we have the catalog to support all of their needs. And so that's been, the FINRA side of our journey. In addition to that, we've also launched a lot of other tests, including the GRE, which has been a big part of our business as well. The USMLE Step 1, which is the first step to becoming a medical doctor in the US. We have an ACT course working on an SAT course, and a course for the new classic learning test. We're one of the first providers for that.
Hmm.
And so we're starting to diversify and broaden our portfolio a little bit. Again, always kind of going back to our core principles of it needs to be a high stakes test that people are going to be invested in working on. There needs to be a strong outcome attached to it, and it needs to contain the type of material that is going to work well with the digital training format.
But I would assume that isn't there probably a much bigger market for courses of going from, let's say, medical school entrance examinations, or I mean, you already have the GRE, or even maybe, high school or grade 12, just science, math courses. Um, people, tutors teaching them. I mean, there are free resources like Khan Academy and so forth that are covering that. But I would assume like there would still be a big demand for students who are looking for like that one-to-one kind of attention. Have you ever explored that kind of a model?
Yeah, we've looked at it. Our goal with Achievable is to build one very high quality course that everybody can use. And then, if people are looking for additional help in areas, we can connect them with tutors, but we're not in the business of being a tutoring company. Those already exist. There's a lot of challenges with those businesses. Churn is a huge problem. Getting people to, use your platform instead of just pulling their customers off the platform and taking your commission away is a
Hmm.
huge problem.
Hmm.
And so we're not really interested in engaging with that. I think that we definitely, I mean, certainly if people want tutors, go to our website. There's a whole free directory of tutors that you can look up, and we encourage people to look at them because there's a lot of really good people in there. But a lot of these people are independent businesses, right? And that seems to be kind of how that model works. A lot of people, I think, have tried to tackle that and haven't really been successful. Now, lately there's been multiple companies that have claimed to be AI tutors that have shown up.
Hmm.
So far, what we've seen is that they aren't accurate enough to be a serious threat to professional tutors yet. That could change in the future, but for now, using an AI tutor is kind of like working off of a C student's notes. It's better than nothing, but you probably want to work off the A student's notes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, AI is getting good, and I mean, I think if somebody has the will to learn, I think AI can be a great tutor. Like, it can really accelerate someone's learning. Um, I'm very curious to know. I mean, you said that at the beginning you tried getting into to sell B2B, right, and trying to get those
Mhm.
customers, and it was challenging. I mean, um, this is the experience of a lot of startups. What can you share a little bit about, what did you do that actually worked in the end? Like, was it really just a lot of networking, cold outreach? How did you, I mean, it's very difficult to convince a big company to work with a small startup.
Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, what we did that worked really well was we pivoted to a direct-to-consumer sales model, and we built a freemium product, and we built a really, really high quality product. And at the end of the day, you can have the best quality product, but if you show up to a large company and you don't check these boxes that they have for like SOC 2 compliance or what have you, then you're not getting in no matter what. Like it's just they have certain needs that you can't meet because you're too small really to logistically feasibly meet them.
Hmm.
So we went direct to consumer instead, and through that we were able to build a reputation in the consumer market, particularly on places like Reddit and elsewhere. People really, really like our courses, and that created a bit of a snowball that has been growing. Has really led our growth ever since. In addition to that, we also then were able to start winning business deals through bottom up sales. So Tim Zhang, the founder of Apollo, which is I think the best sales tool on the market, followed a similar approach where they would basically win over individuals within large companies and then have those individuals kind of sell the product to their immediate manager. The immediate managers would look at it and start to work your way up the chain. And we've had a couple of success stories like this already that have led to us being in some very large corporate clients, like the kind of people that advertise on NFL games. And so that it really all comes back to just having actually product-led growth with a really, really strong, high quality product. And it's not the kind of growth that maybe venture capital investors drool over, which I hear nowadays is something between 200 and 400% year over year. But it's just really been very durable for us. And it's anchored and it's been like arguably free, right? I mean, obviously creating a great product is not free, but we're not paying for ads, right? We're not doing things like hiring a sales team and hoping they can continue to sell. Like it's just the product sells itself, to kind of use that term.
What was the ramp up like in the beginning? Like, did you invest some of your own money? Did you get investment from somewhere else? I mean, was it really just the two founders investing their own time and resources to get it started? And how long did it take
Yeah.
for you to kind of make your first dollar?
Yeah. I mean, we basically were by ourselves working on it for the first 2.5 years. And I went into a lot of credit card debt, right? Like
Oh,
we eventually had to go back to work actually just to be able to pay our own bills. But then we worked on it nights and weekends throughout, which is why if you go to my LinkedIn, you'll see that there's like kind of a gap there. And really, once we started to see a lot of traction and success was during the pandemic, right? It's when a lot of services went digital.
hmm.
It's when a lot of digital learning became more common, and that was where the business picked up to the point where we felt like, okay, not only can this pay for us, right, but it can also potentially grow into a really big business. So towards the end of 2021, we raised a small angel round. It was $650,000, led by Acquired Wisdom Fund and with Goodwater and a few others participating, but mostly angels. And basically, that's the only money that we've needed to raise. For better or for worse, test prep is a very good cash flow business.
Hmm.
Once you get to a certain size, like we are profitable today. We've been profitable for over a year. And we're going to continue to be profitable for the foreseeable future, even as we grow the team and continue to invest in new projects.
That is so interesting. I mean, I would assume that I mean, a margin in this kind of business is pretty good.
Mhm.
But I'm curious, like 650,000 is still a lot of money. Like what was kind of, is your investment mostly into marketing? Like, I mean, you created a high quality course once. It's there. Now you basically have to populate it with students, right? What is your biggest kind of investment?
It's in talent in the team, right? I mean, our biggest expense is paying our authors, and then right after that is our own team. That is the thing that is going to be what differentiates us from everybody else is whether we have a really high quality product and a really high quality user experience. And content and the tech side kind of combine to form that, right? Um, we do quite a bit of marketing now, but paid marketing was not how we grew initially, and so for us now, kind of paid marketing is like bonus. It's like, okay, sure, we can probably grow our top line revenue by another X% by investing in paid marketing. That's great, right? And our paid marketing is profitable, which is also great. But I don't think the business model of raising a bunch of money and then dumping it into marketing necessarily always works very well. I think that, you've got to kind of think about what is it that really is the core reason your company is growing. And for us, it was the product.
Hmm. And okay, I mean that makes a lot of sense. I mean, what's your biggest? I'm assuming now I mean, you've been in business 10 years. Your brand is out there, people who are looking for these kind of courses. I mean, there's some brand recognition. What is your biggest customer acquisition channel? Is it word of mouth? Is it coming from Reddit? Like, where are you getting most of your customers?
Yeah, it's still word of mouth. And it's, Reddit, I consider a part of word of mouth at this point, right? Sort of the town hall, the digital town hall, if you will. A lot of people talk in a lot of Facebook groups about these tests too. And as far as I can tell, we're pretty well regarded in those. And yeah, at the end of the day, you can't control word of mouth other than controlling the experience that people have that they tell their friends, right? So that is again why I consider it to be pretty much all product-led growth.
And I would assume, like with a course like this, if you have a success rate associated with a course, if you can say that, if you take this course, there's 90%, 95% chance you're going to pass this. I mean, that in a way kind of sells itself, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to be honest with you, since we've started publishing our numbers, we've seen that our competitors have started to publish similar numbers, which we find funny. But those are the real numbers, right? We've had tens of thousands of students per year use our platform. And we ask everybody, how did it go? Like, did you pass? Like, what were the things that you learned? What were the things that you feel like we fell down on that we can improve, right? And when you collect tens of thousands of those data points over time, you can figure out what are the things you need to address and then improve that, right? And so that kind of flywheel of like getting customer feedback and then improving the materials, improving the product, I think is a big part of our success.
I mean, so you have a co-founder, your two co-founders, I guess. Are you always aligned in your vision of the business? Is there any challenge um, working with a co-founder, or do you think that it's easier for you because you knew your co-founder for a significant amount of time, and so, you know, you had the friendship and which helps with the I mean, I would assume like if somebody starts with a co-founder, like you never know if, after 1 year the person just loses momentum or inspiration, that's a big challenge then.
Yeah, I mean, I would always say do founder vesting. Like, never just give the company away day one, right? Like always do founder vesting. I also think, controversial or not, I think it's important that one of the co-founders has more than 51% control so that at the end of the day, there's no logjam with decisions. And at the end of the day, for us, that's Justin because he's the one who this was his idea and his brainchild. And also, again, as a product-led growth company, the product's super important. Working together, I think, has been easier because we knew each other beforehand. Were really good friends in college and basically remain really good friends now. And we can turn off work and just hang out. And it's like, just like old times. I think that's really helpful. I also think it creates a lot of trust, right? Like, I don't think either of us are ever worried about, some of the stories you hear about other co-founders, like, stabbing each other in the back or something like that. We would never do that. And I also think it's so important, like, and I see a lot of people that are looking to start companies. They are kind of like, oh, especially people that need a technical co-founder. That's always the people that are most likely to fall into this trap because they're the neediest. They're just willing to pick somebody based on their pedigree. And, at the end of the day, I think you kind of do need to do this with somebody that you know. Like you're going on a survival mission, right? Like it's almost like you're going camping in the desert for 3 years. You're gonna go through some hard times and it's not just going to be all smooth sailing. And success kind of papers over a lot of conflict, but going through hardship magnifies a lot of conflict, right? So even people that you think yeah, I could get along with them, but you're kind of iffy on it, when those hard times come, and that's going to go from being kind of an okay thing to a not okay thing. So I really think you should start companies only with people that you really truly know well, or you should have an arrangement in place, or you should do both of these things. But like have an arrangement in place where there's like a clear like decision maker or sort of like the buck stops with somebody. Usually the person that has like the vision,
Hmm.
so that you can resolve conflicts and not just end up kind of in a situation where you're stuck.
Yeah. And I don't think everybody is built for to be a founder also, like even especially technical people. If somebody has a decent paying job and they are kind of, attracted by this idea of founding a company and, 1 year down the road, they realize it's just too, too difficult, right? It's not, I don't think it's meant for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very like that's such a broad generalization. I don't know if I want to sign on to it, but I certainly have heard that story before. I think that a lot of times, the best kinds of founders are the people that are just obsessed with doing it regardless. Um, because if you're choosing between starting a startup and working at Google, like the net present value of that decision is a lot higher, right? You're going to get paid 3 times more right away, and you're going to have really high job security. And depending on what you're doing, you're probably not going to be working startup hours, right? So a lot of times, the people that are doing startup stuff are doing it because they really love whether it's the vision that they're trying to pursue, the idea that they're going to be so they themselves important and impactful, the essentially like the glory, I guess, of like doing startups at all. Like some people really like that. Or just some people just really like to create, right? Like, and then there's also people that just really enjoy kind of being very independent, right? And those people are often great to start companies. Depending on how they go, they might not necessarily be the best to stick with the company, but like those are all types of people that are more naturally inclined to be a startup founder. Somebody who, has spent the last 5 years of their life at a very cushy job at a very large company. Um, it is a culture shock for them. I've seen people do it successfully, but it doesn't mean that it's not,
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. Yeah, a person has to be hungry in some way. Either it's hunger for freedom, controlling their own time, it's hunger for creating, it's hunger for changing the world. Like there's something has to be driving a person to like take on the startup world, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with working at a big company and being paid very well for it, right? Like that's what probably your parents and my parents told us was the American dream growing up, right? So I don't really blame anybody. Um, yeah, I just think that it really, I think if you're considering it and you are working at a big company, I think just start working on it nights and weekends already. You probably have time, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think that, like, at least from my experience working at larger companies, I was still able to, do kind of 2 hours in the evenings every day, a few more hours on the weekends. You get between 10 and 20 a week. You can still do a lot with that.
Yeah.
And so you can do that now, and then you can say, okay, if I were to work on my startup full time, it would be all of the time that I worked on my day job and all of my extra time every week. How would I feel about that? Right. And getting paid very little for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, is there a mobile component of your business or is completely web-based experience?
Yeah. So we have an extremely strong mobile UI. Our mobile UI is actually all on mobile web, which is a little bit
Okay.
of a departure from your typical business. But basically, we looked at building an app very seriously. There are other companies that do it, like Pocket Prep, that do a nice job. The thing is that basically there's like a couple big reasons why we decided not to do it. The first is just from like a product point of view, you have to maintain multiple code bases. It starts to become a very expensive endeavor very quickly. You also have to pay Google or Apple 30% of everything you make. And so at the end of the day, you're basically like, how much effort am I willing to spend for the marketing footprint of having an app in the App Store when you type in Series 7, right? Like that's more or less what you're paying for. And we felt like that trade-off wasn't there for us. And then we haven't felt like that since. I'm sure that we'll eventually have to do it, but we're not doing it right now because the mobile web experience that we've made is world class. The entire product works really well on your mobile device. It works really well on any device. And the nice part about that is that we don't have to worry about somebody being on an old Android phone that nobody supports anymore. We don't have to worry about IT security issues around apps. When we work with our corporate clients, a lot of them have a big laundry list of app related security checks that we just can skip, which is great. So mobile web has been really good to us and it's provided an app-like experience just from your browser.
I know you mentioned you have a technical team. Can you
Mhm.
share a little bit about your team, your developers and marketing and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, so our team is 15 people now. It's a mix of contractors and full-time employees. I basically run the sort of marketing and business development team. And then Justin runs the technical team and product team, and that includes content. So that's kind of how we have things divided today.
Okay. What is your future vision for the business, let's say 5, 10 years down the road? Do you just want to continue growing, add new courses, continue adding more students and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at the types of tests that we are working on, which we call opportunity gating exams, we call them that because literally they are standing in between you and some kind of opportunity, right? Whether that's getting a job in finance and keeping it, or getting into the next step of medical school, or getting into college, or getting into graduate school. And so almost all of these tests, they are standardized tests. It is a matter of just your preparation levels. Like you don't have to be a genius to get a perfect score on the SAT. You just have to be really, really well prepared. And so that is our goal is to make it so that anybody for any of these exams, regardless of their background, their educational experience, their, you know, like basically where they come from, whether that's, like societally or like literally what country they're from or things like that, anybody who puts in the work can get the score they need on the tests that is important to them in order to reach their goals. And so that is our guiding vision for the company.
Awesome. In every entrepreneur's journey, there's always mistakes, lessons learned, failures. What has been like a big mistake over the last I'm sure there were a few because you've been doing it for 10 years. What is something that comes to mind which you consider like a mistake or a failure? What did you learn from it? What can other entrepreneurs learn from your mistakes?
Yeah, two big ones, right? The first one was actually in choosing our market. And it's funny because, we talked about how the FINRA market has been very good to us. It's our largest market today, and it's also one that you would say we were successful in. But we actually missed when we were doing our search, another market that another company has done very well with called Aceable, that was driver's ed training.
Hmm.
And we missed it because we were looking for tests that were high stakes in terms of like the dollar amount of the outcome, right? And we were looking for tests that we felt like were just basically, a good fit for the type of material that we felt like would fit into the platform well. But Aceable, in becoming, this driver's ed online platform, actually grew a lot faster than us. I mean, I don't know about recently, but certainly for a long time,
Hmm.
because they found a market that was more ripe for disruption. And again, it was a market also that was B2C, which we later found out was a much better fit for the type of company we were trying to run. So I think that when I give advice to other entrepreneurs, I say like do a lot more market research than you think. You're going to be working on whatever market you choose for years. So it's worth investing 1 to 3 months, making sure you've really got the right market. And we probably invested 1 month, and if I would go back and do it again, I would have invested three. Uh, the second mistake was that, I told you all about the benefits of spaced repetition and how spaced repetition is kind of this amazing thing that can train you to memorize the material that you're trying to learn. And that's all true. And we focused all of our sales pitch around that because to us, that was our unique differentiator.
Hmm.
It turned out that the customers didn't really care at all. I mean, they basically didn't even know what it was. It was too much to try and teach them.
Hmm.
Even when I say train you to memorize things, that's a way of explaining it that's very succinct that we've only gotten to after many years of
Hmm.
working on it. And so it was too much jargon. And so the customers didn't connect with what we were selling at all.
Hmm.
So it turned out that what do customers want? They want to get through the test easily, quickly, like reliably,
Hmm.
and preferably like have a little fun along the way, hopefully, at least not have it be completely dry and dull, which arguably is what everybody can claim and everybody can sell. But I think it's just really leading again, it's almost like a corollary to the first one. It's like leading with more research, having real conversations with customers and trying to understand what their motivations are and what their motivations are, what you should sell against, not what you think your product does.
So to me, seems like spend more time upfront just finding the right product market fit. Because yes, I
Mhm.
completely agree with you. Like if I were to pay a company to help me prepare for this exams, basically I'm thinking I'm going to pay you money. Just take my hand, help me pass this exam, right? That's what
Right.
I don't want to know about space repetition. I don't want to know all these things. I'm not here to learn space repetition. Just help me, take my money, help me get through this. So, which you said, which helps them get to the outcome that they're looking for, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's like it seems obvious, right? But we were so like, oh, this is revolutionary, and we're gonna, we thought it again. It's like we had made something that we were really proud of, and we thought was different, and so we wanted to tell everyone why that difference was going to help them. But they didn't care about all that background, right? They just want to know about the brass tacks.
Correct. I'm going to move on to our rapid fire segment. In this segment, I'm going to ask you a few quick questions and you have to answer them maybe in a word or a sentence or so. So the first one is one book recommendation for entrepreneurs and why?
Yeah, I feel like this is probably a common one, but I really liked Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss, basically because it's not just one person's opinion, it is a lot. Um, Essentially, everybody that he's interviewed in that book has been successful in what they've done at some point. And so it's a lot of different perspectives, it comes from a lot of different fields, but it's a lot of good advice. And I think everybody can take something away from that book.
Awesome. An innovative product or idea in the current e-commerce, retail, or tech landscape that you feel excited about?
Yeah, I mean, this one's, I think, going to be everybody's answer nowadays, but AI obviously is very interesting. Um, for me, I think when I think about AI, I think about self-driving cars and how in 2017, the lingo is that everybody was going to use self-driving cars by 2023. It's
Mhm.
2025. That has not taken place, right? And the reason why is what I call the last mile problem. Getting from a car that can drive well 90% of the time to a car that can drive well 99.999% of the time is probably half of the work, if not three-quarters of it. And I wonder, I don't know because I'm not an AI expert, but I wonder if AI is the same thing, right? Like to get from, let's say, an AI tutor that can answer questions 90% correctly to answering questions 99.999% correctly, arguably could be another 10 years. So that's going to be interesting to see whether I'm wrong. And I mean, certainly we are looking right at it and we look at AI stuff all the time and already we like, use it internally for different things. So it's good to uh, it's good to stay on top of it, but I also think that I have a feeling that all these AI predictions about how no one's going to have a job in 10 years, I say there's a decent chance they do not come true.
Yeah, I mean it's quite exciting, and nobody really know what's going to happen in the next 10, 20 years. Is it going to be the invasion of the robots? I mean, nobody knows. A business or productivity tool or software that you would recommend, or a productivity tool?
Yeah, I mean, we use Asana to do our task tracking. It kind of doesn't matter. You can use Notion, you can use Google Docs, you can use whatever you want, but the real point of it is to catalog everything that you need to do and all of your tasks and all of your ideas and write them all down. Um, Basically, in startup land, you're always going to have a million things that you could do, and you're not going to remember all of them. But they might still be a good idea. They might be something you want somebody to do in 3 months when you hire an employee in that area. It's really important to catalog all this stuff so that you can always keep your business moving because you always have something that you can work on.
Yeah,
And also, obviously, to just like make sure you're not dropping the ball with stuff. You don't want to be forgetting to do the thing that your client asks you to do or anything along those lines, even if it's
yeah,
small.
yeah. I think AI has a great role to play in that, right? It can become a great repository for your business, and you basically talk to it, right? If you want to create a new FAQ, you can basically ask, give me a FAQ, and it will give you. Um, Another startup or business that you think is currently doing great things.
Yeah, I mean, I think like again, I'm so focused on my corner of the world, right? So my answers are going to be related to online education. But I really have been impressed with a company called Test Prep Insight. They're in a very similar business to ours, but they are an affiliate. So they essentially review test prep courses and then they tell people what they like about them and what they don't. And that was a crowded market when he showed up and started doing it a few years ago. And they've basically become the biggest and best player in the market that I know of because they've focused on having really high quality reviews that were not just based on who was going to give them the highest commission check, but actually what they really believed about the products. And I do think that in, an age where anybody can write an AI article about anything in about 20 minutes,
Hmm,
there's going to be a flight to quality. So the highest quality content is going to be what Google's trying to reward, and it's also going to be, I think, what makes you successful in the long term.
correct. Yeah. Um, a peer entrepreneur or business person whom you look up to, or someone who inspires you.
Yeah, somebody that inspires me, and again, these are all people from my little corner of the world. There's a guy named Sasha Chada who created a tutoring business called Ivy Scholars. And Sasha Chada started his tutoring business after the tutoring market has been mature for like decades, right? Like SAT and ACT tutoring are not new. And he has grown his business into one of the largest and most successful ones that I know of, and works with really high quality clients, let's say. And he's done that again through this like relentless focus on quality. And in this hyper competitive market, he was able to stand out by just having the highest quality services.
Awesome. Final question, best business advice that you have ever received or you would give to other entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I mean, other than what I mean, as a corollary to what I already said about like market research, the most important part of market research that I think a lot of people really are afraid of doing, and I think that them being afraid is part of the reason why they should do it, is talk to your customers. Like, actually talk to them like this.
Hmm.
Like, don't just like do surveys and don't like hire a user research firm or don't, like go like put up a thing that's like, I will pay $20 to anybody at this coffee shop that talks to me about how they use an AI note taker, and then like sit there and talk to people. It is incredible how much more you will understand by doing that. Like, and I say understand as opposed to learn, right? Like, because arguably you could go ChatGPT and ask what are the top 10 reasons people use an AI note taker, and it will give it to you. And you'll be like, that took 5 minutes, I'm done.
Hmm.
But in order for you to really break into that market and understand what is going to be the gap that you can exploit with the current offerings, or what are the pieces of it, let's say it's a market where it's more mature, what are the pieces of it that you can really focus on to stand out? That's going to come from talking to real people and talking to a good number of them, right? At least a few dozen of them. So that's my advice. It's really like, if you're starting a company, do a lot of homework because you're going to be dedicating your life to this. So the more prep you do, the better off you will be, and it all has like compounding returns in the long term.
Yeah. No, I think that's great advice, and that can reduce businesses kind of, trajectory of getting that product market fit and, everything else. So great advice. Well, Tyler, those were all the questions I had. Thank you so much for sharing your story, for sharing your business advice, strategies, failures. And if anybody wants to check out your courses, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, just go to achievable.me, and you can get a free trial of any course. So go check it out and see if it's right for you.
Awesome. Well, Tyler, thank you so much again, and wish you all the very best.
Thank you. Take care.